Get myself right up on out of here. I feel like a disgrace, I'm not really what I appear. I go home to my girl and I make nicey nice. The fact that she don't know that I just put someone on. I don't like being here. I constantly live in fear. Could be gone at any time. When you live a life of crime, face the music and do the time. Welcome everyone to Mayhemtainment 31. I am your host JD, and unfortunately I don't have my camera pointed down enough, so you're not going to be able to see my cool Mayhemtainment t-shirt on today, but that's all right. Joining me on this very special episode, making his return to the podcast, the one and only Connor Clarkson, straight from the UK. Now we're shooting this at it's about almost 5:30 p.m. here, East Coast time in the United States, and if I'm not mistaken, it's about 9:30 p.m.
Yeah, 9:25. Right, yeah, at the minute 9:25.
Yeah, so 4 hours difference, which is why it's always a challenge when both times we've had Connor on. The time difference is definitely a big one. But we're always happy that he's had the time to come back on and join us for this conversation. Please share this episode out. Leave us a comment. The next time we have Connor on, we are going to do a live episode so we can get some viewer interaction with Connor, and you guys can ask him questions directly. But in the meantime, you can leave a comment to this episode, and we can lead with that in his next appearance. Our storefront, bonfire.com/store/the/May/JDE Designs. I messed that all up. Storefront, bonfire.com/store/JDE Designs, and that's with a Z at the end of it. And pick yourself up some Mayhem Media apparel and support the show. Connor, welcome back to the show. I hope I do better than the opening so far.
You're all good. It's just a pleasure to be back.
Good. Now you're on Facebook. You can follow him on Facebook at Connor Clarkson Wrestler. Connor Clarkson -Wrestler, I believe, is
I think it's still just Clarkson -Wrestler.
You're right, it is. It's Clarkson -Wrestler, actually. You're right, it is Clarkson -Wrestler.
Try and get that changed.
And what about, are you on Twitter? I looked for you on YouTube. You don't have a YouTube channel, but
I'm on TikTok, I think. I think it's Connor Clark 632.
Okay, so on TikTok as well. I'm not a fan of TikTok, but happy to plug anybody that is.
Yeah.
Make sure you give him a follow. Make sure you let him know that you saw him on Mayhem Media or Mayhemtainment, and tell him you enjoyed it and you want to see him back again. Connor, we had you on last time. You're from the UK, and we kind of focused on that and the wrestling differences between the UK and the United States, and some about your career. This time, I wanted to talk to you about because we didn't really address it, and I don't know if many people who went to look up some of your matches and stuff saw it. And for the next episode, I'd like to actually get one of your matches and have it on with, show it and then have you talk about it while we're doing it. I was going to do that for this one, but I didn't have enough time. But if people don't know, maybe they haven't realized it yet, but you have a disability. You're a wrestler with a disability.
Yeah.
And what is it, sir, that you have?
It's cerebral palsy, but the complete name is, I believe, spastic diplegia of cerebral palsy.
Okay, and so cerebral palsy for the short term, or for people who aren't in depth with it, and I can respect that because my disease, arthrogryposis, also has, while there's not a whole lot of different names for it, there's a couple. There are many different variations of it, so I can respect the specific name that you have for it as well, that it is different from other types.
Yeah.
Cerebral palsy. You're a wrestler with cerebral palsy. How do you, if I may be so bold, how do you make that work?
It's a challenge, and it's interesting because, like, I can still go to the training, I can go to the gym, I can still do it all, but the amount of times, like even something like as doing as basic as like a headlock takedown or even an arm drag, like with my balance and like just the entire legs in general, there are a lot more things you've got to think about. Like you've got to think about your footwork a lot more, your balance a lot more, and even something as simple as like doing a shoulder roll or even just a headlock, you've got to like adapt it a lot more to what the regular person would. So it's a lot more complicated, but at the same time, it's complicated but more rewarding, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get it. It's the challenge that makes it overcoming the challenge that makes it more rewarding. I can certainly relate to that. Um, so you're saying so you have to be paying more attention to your footwork. Not that every wrestler, of course, doesn't have to pay attention to
Yeah,
their footwork, but it's something you have to be extra mindful of because of the way your legs work with your disease.
yeah. So,
Okay.
like, in terms of like how difficult it is, like, I could do a standard lockup, I could go through like a standard, what, 10-15 minute match, but it'd take a lot more than just a basic think about to get through that match. Like, if I was to step and I stepped wrong ever so slightly, I could literally collapse and I'd probably end up blowing my knee out.
I was just about to say that. So do you? I imagine you probably stay away from like big spots, like any you don't do the top turnbuckle very much, or do you? Are you daring and you still go up stairs?
I mean, I like in training, like obviously we do the training. We've had like the seminars before the shows and things like that. And there are options to try that stuff out. And like I will base it off how like how my legs feel in terms of like the movement, the agility, and like the pain aspect as well. Like I'll determine what I'll do during a training session based on how my legs are when I basically get out of bed. So
So
like
you have to. So you kind of like do like a after you get up and out of bed. If you have
yeah,
training or a show that day, you kind of have to do like a personal inventory, so to speak, where you have to
yeah.
consider where your pain level is at, how are your legs working, how's your balance that day, like all those things come into play for
Yeah,
you before you even hit the mat.
it's like before I even leave, like I've had times when my legs have been that bad that I've just thought, you know what, I'm not even going to risk turning up to the training because I don't want to make anything worse. But like, I'll wake up, get myself sorted, and I'll probably spend like an hour on the backyard just like working on like my balance, my agility. I'll get the mat out, do some shoulder rolls, take some basic bumps, and just work on a few things like stretches and that just to see where my level is for that day. Like some, obviously, everyone will have the bad days, everyone will have the good days, but that is taken so more into consideration with the disability.
Yeah, and we're not trying to take any away from from wrestlers. Everybody has their good days,
Yeah,
everybody has their bad days, everybody
100%.
has certain types of pains. But when you have a disability like you have or like I have, that has to be it's something that you have to think about, right? It's something that
Yeah,
you always have to be you always have to be aware of it because you could put yourself into a situation where you could potentially hurt yourself or God forbid somebody else.
exactly. And like, I'm the type of person to be like, yeah, I'm in pain. I'll pop a couple of pain pills and I'll give it a couple of minutes and then I'll do it. But with the like, and I've done that plenty of times, but with the wrestling, like, I'll happily carry on and keep doing it. But at the same time, I've still got to think about my opponent. Like, even if I feel like I can do it, I've still got to think, is it going to be wise if against my opponent?
Now, how do you balance that? How do you balance that your during your training and stuff when you're there's got to be days where you're having pain or
Yeah,
where you think you're feeling unsteady or whatever, but maybe you're not. Is there are there days? How am I trying to say this? How do you figure out when it's just, oh man, I'm tired and I don't really want to do it today, and oh man, I'm really not feeling like I should be. It's dangerous if I do it today. How do you? Where do you? Is there something or a criteria that you internally look for or decide upon that's the difference between being a procrastinator or someone who just wants to be lazy that day and then legitimately being concerned for your health or the health of your fellow wrestlers?
I mean, I've never been like one to really worry about my physical health because I've dealt with it so long. I know what I can and cannot do regardless of how I feel that day. Like obviously some days are going to be worse than others, some days are going to be better, but it all depends from that moment when I first wake up and get out of bed. And even something as getting out of bed could determine whether I actually go to the training that day, or whether I just give it a miss and manage it with pain pills, or whether I just think, no, it's not going to be a good idea to go.
Now, when you get up, has there been days when you get up and when you initially get up, you're like, oh man, it's a bad day, but then you've managed your pain, whether it be with pills or with stretches, and then you're like, oh no, I am feeling good. I am going to go try. Have you changed your mind in that regard, where the day starts out where it's a no, but then you turn it around?
100%. Like, I've had the days where I'm like, this isn't going to work out. Whereas the pain pills, take a couple of pain pills, probably give it like 20, 30 minutes, try and do some stretches. And if it works out and it actually goes good, then I'll do it. But then there has been some days that regardless of the stretches, regardless of the pain pills, I've had to turn it and I'm like, yeah, no, today's not going to be the day for it.
All right. Yeah, I can understand that as well. Now, has there been, so there's been other days where you get up and you're feeling good, and then something, you go out and do your own training or your own stretching, and you're like, nope, it's actually not the day. I am feeling off or whatever. Have you had it be the other way as well? Or
not really that often. Okay. I mean, like, if I'm having a good day, it's normally a good day throughout. Like, obviously, I'll get tired a lot more quicker because I'm having to use more strength to get about. But it's like, normally, if I'm having a good day, but something goes wrong, that can literally just be managed with a couple of pain pills.
So you can if you develop pain as the day goes on, you have a pretty good regimen to manage it. It's not something that will totally shut you down then.
No.
That's good. Well, that's good news. I mean, I have, with my pain, I have days where I get up and I think I'm feeling okay, and then I do something, I move the wrong way or turn the wrong way, and it's like, oh, that just, that's the end of that, and the rest of the day is then spent, trying to just take it easy. So that's good. If you
100%.
Yeah. So if you have days, most of your days, even when you have pain, you can manage it, then that's pretty good if you can prevent it from destroying your entire day. Now, you said a couple times about the fatigue, about getting tired. Talk about that. What, like, for anybody who doesn't know, what does your disease? How does your disease affect you in terms of stamina, in terms of muscle and strength and stuff? If you could talk about that a little bit.
How's the best way to say this? Like, stamina wise, I'm still pretty good. Like, my endurance is quite good, but in terms of like strength, I'm a lot more top dominative, if that makes more sense. Like, I'm a lot more stronger on top. So like
your upper body.
Obviously, I've still got like some strength in my legs.
Yeah.
Obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be able to move at all or do what I do. But like, I'm a lot better with the upper body. So like, most of the stuff I'll do is like groundwork, just because then it gives my legs that rest, like that 2-3 minute, 5 minute period to have a little breather, but still be able to do like the groundwork with using my upper body.
Okay, good. Yeah. Now, you talk about, if you could, your wrestling style then. Since being on your feet can sometimes be an issue, and since you said your stamina is pretty good, but you said you do get tired. Is your style, like I said, I've only gotten to watch like a little bit of a couple of clips and stuff of your matches. I've tried to look for as much as I can. But since you're just, you're starting out, you don't have a whole bunch of stuff available yet for people to see. Which is why you should go see Connor Clarkson. If you're in the UK, look for the shows and, request from the promotions. Tell them you want to see Connor Clarkson in their promotion and on their cards. And then you can see yourself in wrestling. But are you like a more mat technician then? Do you adapt your style, or?
Most of the stuff I've trained over the last, don't know how many years, I think it's like 5 or 6 years at this point, doing various things. Like, I will do a lot more groundwork, but at the same time, I can still do like I don't really do like, I'll avoid like anything to do with like rope running or going corner to corner. Like, I can do like top rope moves if it's like a crossbody or a frog splash or even a DDT. I'll do stuff like that. But in terms of like moving that much, I'll avoid anything which involves using the ropes most of the time. And I'll normally like stick to the middle of the ring and just focus on like more groundwork.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense though, and you can still make that. You could still make that work. I mean, I still think. I mean, even though there's out there, you got Will Ospreay doing stuff that
Yeah,
human beings shouldn't be able to do. And you got Darby Allin.
100%.
Yeah, and you got Darby Allin doing things that no sane person should be doing. But that's
Yeah,
not.
like diving through chairs and glass.
Yeah, yeah, but there's no reason. That's not. Those are great for the crowd. You know what I mean? Those spots are great.
Yeah,
It gets you excited. Wow, I've never seen stuff like that before. That stuff's great. But for me personally, I've always enjoyed just as much seeing a good mat match. I mean, some of my favorite wrestlers are mat technicians. I mean, William Regal or Steven Regal is one of my favorites. Because he
exactly.
is so good. He's so good on the mat. And in fact, I think if you want to see how good he is comparatively to how bad Bill Goldberg is, you should go watch the match between Steven
Yeah,
Regal
that
and Bill
6 minute
Goldberg,
match.
because that's a
Yeah,
train wreck. That's a train wreck.
yeah.
But
I was watching the documentary probably last week on that match actually, and it looked probably one of the worst things that could happen. You don't put a power guy with a technician and think, yeah, that's going to be a 5-star match, because it really isn't.
yeah, yeah. And what's funny is if you hear Bill Goldberg tell a story, you get a completely different version of it than what you hear from Steven Regal. It's really quite amusing. And I believe Steven Regal more than Bill Goldberg. Sorry. It's
Yeah,
just the way it is. But
I've never really been a Goldberg fan.
no, not many people are, just the people who like, or I guess just the people who go and see him, because he always, he gets a big pop every time. But I've never been a big
Yeah,
Goldberg fan. I think he's not a real wrestler. That's just my personal opinion. So I think, and like I said, I think mat matches where you see wrestlers reverse each other and get each other in different holds, and that takes, I think, just as much talent and skill as being able to do off the top rope and stuff. Anybody can get up on the top rope and
yeah,
flip around and do it, but not everybody has the mat skills to get down on the mat and actually have a technical match.
yeah, 100%. And I mean, that kind of plays to my advantage, because if I need to go to the ground, and like people have said this, like through plenty of training sessions, like give me a little signal if you need to go to the ground, and we'll do the majority of the match. As like, even when I've done like practice training matches, like give me a little signal if you need to go to the ground, I'll take you to the ground, and then we'll do the rest of the match, or as much of the match as you want as ground. And then when you feel you're ready to go back up, let me know and we can start working back up.
Yeah, that's
But
great. Is that how you let's shift the conversation based on what you just said then to how your fellow wrestlers receive you and stuff. Do you and I ask this because in a lot of places, you know what I mean, even though people don't like to talk about it, it's not something that we usually care talk about here on Mayhem Media, but have you faced any kind of discrimination or anything along those lines at all? If you go,
yeah,
you're free.
unfortunately, I've had my fair share of people being idiots, let's say, if we're going to be politically correct. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like, we're not going to spend too much time on this. I'm just curious. Have you
yeah,
faced any because of your disability, or is it for other reasons? Like, I'm asking specifically about your because of your disability. Have you faced any discrimination or any kind of bad treatment or behavior? We're not putting anybody under the bus. I'm not asking you to name names
yeah,
or promotions or anything like that. So I'm just
I've
curious
had
what
my
you have
I've
faced.
had my fair share of discrimination, because obviously my disability, it kind of comes with the disability. You expect some sort of hate from it, but at the same time, I've had a much greater level of like praise from people and all of that. So the praise really does outweigh the discrimination, but there is
Good.
still some there.
Well, I think that's part, but that isn't that. But you could say the same
Yeah,
thing for everybody in life. I mean, any wrestler, even if they're completely, even like I said, the Will Ospreys or Kenny Omegas, I'm sure they don't get along with everybody backstage. I'm sure that there's,
100%.
I don't want to, drop names or anything, CM Punk, but I know a lot of people have problems with certain wrestlers backstage, CM Punk. Now, I don't want to name any names, CM Punk, but I just wanted to
Yeah,
point that out to everybody that that all wrestlers don't have to get along, and there's a lot of different reasons, CM Punk. So,
yeah,
well, that's great though that your the positivity has outweighed the negative though. That
yeah,
I'm glad
100%.
about that. So, and that's good that you've most of your coworkers, your fellow wrestlers are willing to kind of let you call the match. Then, if you need to go to
Yeah,
if you need to go
like
to the mat, then they go to the mat. If you want to get back up, they get back up. That's That's pretty
So
awesome too.
I'm a massive MMA fan as well. So like when they do grappling in MMA, that's kind of like what I've been going towards. So when I do the mat work, I'll obviously do the technical stuff, but then if I'm doing submissions and that, I'll take most of it from MMA.
Yeah, and there's no reason. Yeah, I think that's a great adaptation to your abilities in the ring, is to take different forms and then make it your own. I think
Yeah,
that's where you'll be able to stand out, is not just because of your disability, but because of the way you take what you can do in the ring and you work around it.
make it my own. Yeah,
Yeah, and
that,
I think that's what's going to definitely work best in your favor there.
100%. I
Um,
mean, don't get me wrong. I've done sequences that have taken ages, and I mean multiple failed attempts, and I've been pissed off at it quite a few times. But at the same time, it's just like, if this doesn't work, let's see how it looks on camera, and then whatever we don't like on camera, we can change and adapt it so it looks better.
Yeah, and that's something that all wrestlers, I think, should probably do, is watch their craft and,
Yeah,
and be able to adjust and change things. I think that's part of being a wrestler there.
exactly.
So let's see. Now you said you don't really do too much rope work and stuff. Is that have you found, is that difficult for your opponents and stuff? Because the way we see it in wrestling today, there's a lot of rope work. It seems like whenever a
Yeah,
wrestler, it
Will
always
Ospreay,
ends
for
up going
example.
back to the
Yeah,
ropes. So is that frustrating for some of your opponents or some of your coworkers, that when you can, that's not something they can go to?
I mean, I've never really been in a position where it's like, yeah, you 100% need to do something with the ropes. But like, if someone says, oh, yeah, can you do this? I'll obviously give it a little practice, see if it actually works. And if it does work, then it's like, yeah, I can do this. Or it's like the same with anything from the top rope. Like, if I don't think the reaction's going to be worth the risk, point blank, I just won't do it.
Yeah.
Especially in my position, where if I'm at risk of injuring myself, is it going to be worth the reaction? If it is, I'll probably do it. I'll probably be in bed for the next couple of days resting, but I'll still do it. But if it's not worth the reaction, or I don't think the crowd's going to get the reaction from it, I'm just point blank will think of something else.
Spoken like a true person with a disability, and a true performer with a disability, and a true performer, all of those things rolled into one with that statement right there. There have been plenty of times where I have been like, you know what, I'm going to do this and I'm going to pay for it tomorrow and the next day, but I'm going to do it. So I can also relate to that kind of a feeling where you're like, yeah, I shouldn't do this. It's not good, but I am going to, and it's going to look great or be great. And I'm going to pay for it for a couple of days, but I'm going to do it anyway. So
Yeah,
yeah,
100%. But on the other side of that, it's like with the stuff you're seeing like WWE, or even with Darby Allin in AEW, it's like, I think, and William Regal pointed this out quite well. It's like people have almost forgot what a like freestyle wrestling match was, where it would literally be on the mat for 85-90% of the time, and you would rarely see any big moves. And I
I
think William Regal actually pointed this out quite well.
I agree with you there. I think that is something that wrestling needs to get back to. I think they've almost desensitized the crowd to being able to watch that type of wrestling, because now everybody wants them on the ladder or from the top rope and doing
Yeah,
corkscrew punches and suicide dives, and that's what they want to see now. And you've kind of elevated wrestling to a point where it's almost more of a daredevil sport than it is a wrestling sport. And I think that's one area where AEW has been lacking recently, is with those types of matches. Now, I just watched, because Sting just retired, I just watched Revolution, and the
nice.
one thing that I was impressed with by that card was the length of the matches.
Exactly.
A lot of the matches really went longer than I thought, because you watch Dynamite and Collision and stuff sometimes, and they'll have like a 10-minute match or like a 12-minute match. And yeah, they're all over the place, but it's like, man, 12 minutes, that's not really a wrestling match. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
What happened to the matches that are, 30 minutes, 20 minutes, and even
Yeah.
longer, the 45.
Even like the Iron Man matches where it was like 45 minutes,
Yeah,
60 minutes,
what is
even
it?
when it was like 90 minutes back in the day.
Yeah, Bryan Danielson, wasn't it? Bryan Danielson just did a 30-minute Iron Man match or something like that.
Yeah,
And I said, that's not an Iron Man match, that's a wrestling match.
Yeah, that's just your
just a
standard
wrestling
match.
match. Yeah, that's not an Iron Man. A 30 minutes is not an Iron Man match. I'm sorry. I don't ever buy that. A 30-minute match is not an Iron Man
No,
match.
an Iron Man match is what, 60 minutes
at
or
least
longer?
60, yeah, at least 60 minutes. At least 60 minutes. And then it's plausible. And even then, the score should at most be like a 4 to a 3 in terms of
Yeah,
pinfalls or submissions. Anything more than that, and it's unrealistic, I think. That's why I don't like these 12-minute matches and less that, it's like, wait a minute, someone's beat up in 12 minutes. That's all the longer they can last is 12 minutes. Yeah, I understand you did all these big moves and stuff, but come on. But that a Revolution I thought was really great in terms of the length of their matches. I still think they need to get back to some more mat wrestling. That would be great too, I think, to put on a really good
100%.
wrestling match. But I am happy that at least the matches on the pay-per-view that I watched were lengthier in terms of time. I really did appreciate that.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, not everyone's going to do a lengthy match because that's not your style, but you can't exactly put like someone that will burn themselves out within 5 minutes in like a 30-minute or even an Iron Man match because they're just going to be blown up for like most of the match and it's going to look terrible.
Yeah. And also sometimes you see these with any matches that do try and get length. It's like one person dominates the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then the other person comes back, does their 5 moves, and then hits their finisher, and then that's it.
Exactly.
Now, let me ask you real quick, since I just brought up the 5 moves, the 5 moves of doom. If people in the wrestling world and fans know about it,
John Cena.
it usually signifies a wrestler that only has 5 moves or less, or maybe 1 or 2 more in their arsenal. They do the same 5 moves every match, usually get the pinfall. The crowd pops, but it's lazy. It's lazy. Okay, let's be honest. That's
You
lazy.
need to be able to do more than like if it's like 5 different styles of moves, then fair play. But if it's like 5 moves from the same style, it's like you can do so much with your potential, but you're limiting yourself kind of.
Yeah. And I agree with that. And some wrestlers are notorious for that, and then John Cena being one of them. And then of course he came out with the 6th move of doom or the 5th move of doom,
The
whatever he was,
lightning fist or whatever it was.
yeah, which is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life.
You're basically saying I'm now knocked out by a punch, even
Yeah,
though I've taken hundreds of punches within that match.
yeah, yeah. Because John Cena's and that's something else that you see from wrestlers who don't have a lot of moves in their arsenal is they do a lot of punches. It's a lot of fist fight then. And then again, I don't want to drop any names, Hulk Hogan, but some wrestlers are notorious, Hulk Hogan, for only having 5 moves, Hulk Hogan and John Cena. So you need to have more moves than that at this point. I think
100%.
It's not late 80s, it's not early 90s. I think it was different. It was different when it was like a mat when it was a mat match, like we were talking about earlier, and then you do a couple of moves at the end to get the crowd hyped for the end. But at this point, the sport of wrestling has changed
100%.
when I was a kid, and I'm sure even though you're substantially younger than I am, it's changed even from when you were a kid, even 10 years ago. It's changed. So the sport is always changing. It's always evolving, just like any sport. Baseball, football, they always have little changes that eventually trickle down and change the sport as a whole. And I think one of those things that are happening right now is we're getting a lot of high flying stuff, a lot of acrobatic stuff, but we're missing out on the mat wrestling right now.
We'll forget about people will be like, oh, how can I hit this off the top rope differently to what I did the last 20,000 times? But people yes, we get taught the basics, but when you learn like that, especially with like high flying stuff, it's like you cannot forget the basics. If you can't do the basics, you can't have a decent match. It's like, yeah, the top rope cross bodies, the DDTs, the suicide dives, everything like that is cool. But if you can't do the basics to a decent level, you're not going to get match.
Yeah.
You need to be even something as simple as like an arm drag or a wrist lock or a headlock takeover or something like that. Even a body slam. If you can't do the basics like that, you can have a match, but it's going to be a really bad one.
Yeah. And again, we're not naming any names, Bill Goldberg, but some people just, I mean, if you want to watch from a fan's perspective, if you want to see the most painful armbar or hammerlock that you've ever seen in your life, go watch the Goldberg Steven Regal match. It's going to
Yeah,
hurt you to watch it. Trust me.
100%.
Yeah. So, excuse me there. What else? We pretty much went through a lot of the stuff that I wanted to go through. The top rope stuff. Actually, I want to go back to the top rope stuff because you said you don't do a lot of rope stuff and running, and that makes sense. But
Yeah.
what about you said you've done some off rope, top rope stuff. Have you done some top rope stuff with your opponent, like a superplex, for example?
Not superplexes, and I'll try and find the clips to download and send to you later. But I've done like just like basic cross bodies, like just diving off the top rope and being caught or something like that. And I've done like the elbow drops. What else have I done? Tornado DDTs.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
And that. And I've had it where I'm in the corner, someone's punching my head, and like I'm not on the top rope, but they are, and I've just given them like a power bomb.
Okay. Okay. So like the
As like
turnbuckle power bomb,
as like a reversal.
yeah, like a turnbuckle power bomb reversal
Yeah.
kind of thing. That's pretty cool. Now, have you taken any spots off the top, such as a superplex or anything? Have someone taken you off of the top turnbuckle?
I don't think so. Actually, I'm quite lucky. Like I've done I've been in battle royals and Royal Rumbles where I've been picked up by two massive blokes, and they've literally picked me up, thrown me over the top rope as the elimination. But like everyone that got eliminated prior was there to catch me.
Catch you, yeah,
So,
that makes sense though.
Because landing on a hard wooden floor from about 10, 15 feet, well, 10, 12, 15 feet in the air is not a enjoyable experience.
Yeah, and that's not just for you though. All wrestlers, they usually try and have people out there to catch them when they take those kind of spots. Maybe I shouldn't be using the word spot. Hopefully, I don't get any hate mail from the wrestling community. But from those big spots, yeah, you usually, when you're getting thrown out of the ring, usually you want someone there catching you, at least one.
Yeah, or at least someone just to make sure that you don't spike your head into the floor.
Yeah, that as well. Now, have you been in? Let's talk about that. Have you been in any dangerous situations yourself where you thought maybe you were going to be injured, or that maybe you thought maybe you were going to injure someone else?
Not in a match, but
in practice.
In practice, I've had it where I've taken something as simple as just your most simple suplex, and I've landed dodgy, and it's like taken my knee out for a couple of weeks. Or even a German suplex, like I dislocated my shoulder because I landed too far on the back of my shoulder and my neck.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Now with your with cerebral palsy and with stuff, you have some problems with your legs. Like you said, your upper body is much more stronger than your lower body. So
100%.
So then how do you handle if someone wants to put you in the ropes or throw you into the ropes? How do you handle that? Can you, or is that why you don't like to do it, because you can't make it good for the crowd?
Like and this is actually a style that we kind of worked on and kind of created to adapt to my own. So instead of like running between rope to rope, they'll obviously have me against the rope, go to throw me off, but instead of me running to the other side, I'll do like a diving roll to the other side and then use the rope to get standing back up, ready to take whatever move, whether it's a clothesline or anything like that. So instead of like running between the ropes, I'll obviously get sent off and then like dive roll across the ring to make sure that I've still cleared enough space to take the next move.
Okay, that's interesting. Nice. Okay, that's great. So you found ways to like adapt wrestling to your style and stuff. Yeah, that's
100%.
Excellent. Yeah, that's excellent. I think that's probably where you're gonna I think make the most ground is adapting it and start doing things the way because there's definitely ways you can make what you're doing look good. Like I said, I've watched some of your matches, and there's nothing, I don't see anything wrong with them. I very much like your wrestling style. The very little that I've seen of it. The very little I've seen of it, because I'll tell you, you do not have a lot out there. We should talk maybe after this episode to try and help you get some more of your content out there or something, because I think
it's just the fact of it didn't get recorded at the time, so I can only like put on there what's been recorded.
Yeah. Yeah, that is an issue with independent organizations. They don't always have the ability to, record it and to get that stuff. They don't have the production side of it, which is, disappointing, I think, because what some of the independent wrestlers, they're just as good as some of the people you see on TV. And I think a lot of independents have started launching their own YouTuber channel and stuff, but there's still many that don't have that capability or don't have the manpower to put that on.
100%. I mean, like, especially with like independent promotions and indie wrestlers, like the stuff you put on social media could be the stuff that gets you your next contract or your next big match.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you never know. Me and Mayhem Media and State of Pro Wrestling have been working together and doing some stuff, and we're talking about maybe trying to get involved with putting on more shows, or at least like being able to record them, like being able to record shows and stuff like that. So yeah, we've been looking into that, and I think that's something independents need more of is people to help them produce the show like from a TV's perspective, from a camera's perspective, so that you can showcase your talent and your wrestlers.
100%, because especially with like, you can as an independent wrestler or an independent company, you can easily get shadowed by much larger companies, and 9 times out of 10, or even 10 times out of 10, stuff you advertise or the stuff you put out on social media plays a bigger factor than just, oh yeah, he's had a match, let's go watch that on social media. But it plays a bigger part because like a lot of other companies could be looking at that and be like, now that he's uploaded that, let's have a little watch and see whether we want to book him for a match.
Yeah. And the independents, it's not like with the independents, at least most independents, from what I'm aware of, aren't like exclusive. Like you don't usually just sign with an independent company and then that's all you work for. You're free to go and for other companies as well. So, and that's how you operate, right? Like you have what, 2 or 3 different companies that you work with, or is it just one? Right?
I believe I had 2. I'm moving down the country soon, so I might be able to get involved with another couple of different companies down that side as well. But yeah.
Okay. So what you're moving like within the United Kingdom, you're moving further south?
Yeah, it's still the United Kingdom. It's probably about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours away from where I currently am.
Okay.
So it's not really that bad. I could probably get to and from the places within like an hour and a half on a train.
Okay. So are you still going to be working with the companies that you're local with here, or are you pretty much like almost like, are you going to be starting over with new indie promotions when you move?
I mean, if they want me there, then like anyone can just shoot me a message or shoot me an email or something like that. But like I'll always go to whatever's closest to me, so like whichever promotion's closest to me. But obviously, if I'm given enough notice and enough time to make the travel arrangements, I could go anywhere up and down the country, really.
Okay. So there you go. Promotions in the United Kingdom. Connor Clarkson will go up and down the countryside to get booked. So make sure you reach out and book Connor Clarkson. Tell him that you want him on your show. And if you're a fan, reach out to the promoters. Tell them that you want to see Connor Clarkson and visit this or view this episode. Share out this episode. Leave us a comment. This is the second time Connor Clarkson's been on our show, so go check out his first appearance and give that a watch. The first one was more about him wrestling in the UK and the differences and indie promotions and stuff. In this episode, we've definitely got to talk about his disability and wrestling with the disability.
100%.
And I think it's been very informative. I've definitely enjoyed this conversation very much.
Appreciate it.
And even a little more so than the last conversation we had. I think this one, while the other one was also very good, this one was really much more about you and you personally. And I think that's
this like the last episode, correct me if I'm wrong, was more of like a general aspect of the UK wrestling, whereas this one is like more down to let's get to know him on a personal aspect.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's what I wanted to do was definitely get to know you on a more personal level, and I definitely think that we've accomplished that in this episode, and we definitely want to have you on again. We definitely want to do a live episode. We just weren't able
Yeah,
to make that work today,
all good. An
but
episode is still an episode.
absolutely, yeah. Well, the more you're out there, that's all that matters. So yeah, and hopefully we can get some promoters in the U.S. If hey, some of you indies are not tiny, some of you guys, some of you indie promotions are a little bigger, reach out to
Yeah,
Connor Clarkson, make some travel arrangements for him, bring him to the United States. Let's get him some US exposure as well. So don't be afraid to reach
100%.
out. And don't be afraid, promoters. This is to the promoters now. Don't be afraid to book someone different who offers you something different on your card. I think you'll be surprised how much people will appreciate a change up in what you're offering. So that's, I think, the biggest sales pitch for, or at least my sales pitch for Connor Clarkson to you independent wrestlers and to the WWE and AEW too. You want Connor Clarkson because he's going to offer you something that's a little bit different than what you're getting now. And I think that once you see people reacting to something different, you're going to realize what you're missing. And don't worry, Connor. As soon as your AEW deal comes through, I will only take 10%.
Just 10%. Just 10%.
I will only take 10%. Finder's fee. Just finder's fee.
Not 9.5, not 9, not 8.5, just 10%.
Yep. Nice even round number, 10%. So as a finder's fee in case AEW or WWE picks you up, or TNA for that matter.
Yeah.
So yeah, reach out to Connor Clarkson, get him on your card, see what he has to offer. Trust me, the crowd is going to respond, and you want to get him on your card because he's going to offer you something different. Reach
100%.
out. What's your email address in case anybody does want to book you that's watching right now?
The email address is clarksonwrestling@gmail.com.
Clarkson. Yeah. Back to the beginning. And, I always do this. It's like the beginning of episodes and the end of episodes. I get tongue tied. I don't know what's been happening lately. So say it again for everybody. I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
So it's clarksonwrestling@gmail.com.
So reach out to that email address. Trust me, if I say it again, I'll mess it up. Reach out to that
All
email
good.
address and book Connor Clarkson. Tell him that you want him on your show, and let's get him some bookings, and let's get him some more fans. If you're a fan, go like his page and follow him on Facebook. He's not a big poster at this point, but follow him. He does post things from time to time, and when he's doing new dates and stuff, he does post that on his social media, so that way you can track
Yeah.
where he's going to be next. That's why you really want to follow him on social media, so you know where he's going to be. And tell your promoters, if you're local, tell your promoters in the UK, tell them you want to see Connor Clarkson. Tell them you saw Connor Clarkson on an episode of a podcast, Mayhem Media, Mayhemtainment, and you want to see him on a card. So let's get him some bookings.
100%. Appreciate
Shout
that.
out. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Shout out to Marcus Frederiksen. He does the music here at Mayhem Media. He plays us in and out of every single episode, and I occasionally forget to shout him out. And I don't want to forget this time. Marcus Frederiksen. You can find his music on reverbnation.com/Marcus Frederiksen. Share out your favorite song, and we'd love to hear from you about what your favorite song is from him. Check out. Oh, there he is. I do have a ticker up for that. So I'll let that tick across the bottom for a minute. Our storefront, bonfire.com/store/JDE Designs. That's with the Z at the end of it. See, I got it right at the end of the episode. And you can follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. Just search for Mayhem Media, and you can find our channels. Please share out this episode. We want Connor Clarkson to get some notoriety and get him noticed. So please share out this episode so that we can get him some bookings. And when you go visit him on Facebook, leave him a comment, send him a message, and tell him that Mayhem Media sent you. So that way he continues to come on this show as well. Connor, anything else you'd like to add before we close out?
I think we've just about covered it.
Absolutely. Connor doesn't have a storefront yet, but I'll talk to him after the show about that. Yes, I'm everywhere. JD is everywhere. Even if you don't see me, I'm everywhere. I'm on State of Pro Wrestling. I'm with Friends of the Squared Circle, Wrestling of the 313. We'll give everybody a shout out because I'm everywhere. I'm behind the screens. I'm in front of the screens. JD's everywhere. Okay. I'm going to be everywhere. So make sure you share out Connor Clarkson too. Let's get him everywhere now. Let's get him everywhere so that we can get him noticed and get him picked up and get him some more dates. For Connor Clarkson, thank you so much for taking the time to be on our show. I'm very grateful to have you
Always a pleasure, as always.
Yeah, and I'm very excited to have you on a live episode when we can do that again.
Yeah, hopefully next time is the live episode.
Yes, we're going to make that happen, the live episode. And I am your host. We got lots of great episodes coming up. Make sure you stay following us on all our social medias, Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble, to track our episodes and new episodes when they release. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Until then, I am your host, JD. That's the end.